Recording in progress.
This video is for Romeo and Juliet, Act 1, Scene 2, and it is a shorter scene, so this video will be shorter than Act 1 and Scene 1. I can hear you cheering in the background. One side I failed to advance to when we did Act 1, Scene 1 was Romeo. I told you what Benvolio meant and what Tybalt meant. Romeo's name, someone from Rome, right? But particularly associated with a pilgrimage to Rome, someone on a journey. So this idea that he is a pilgrim is one that will come up later in the play. So I think that's important to know. He is the teenage son of the Montagues, whereas Juliet is the teenage daughter of the Capulets. All right, so let's look at Scene 2. Hopefully you have your book opened to Act 1, Scene 2. And the video is going to shift, if you will. If we're looking at a movie, it's going to be a new scene. Let me advance my slide here. Okay, now, don't look too close. I don't like AI. You probably know that about me, but I didn't find a great picture of Capulet in Paris, so I asked AI to make one. So there's probably, I don't know, a missing chair leg or 4 fingers instead of 5 somewhere in this picture. You know I don't trust AI. All right, here we go. Romeo and Juliet, Act 1, Scene 2. It begins with, or it involves our characters Capulet, who's the head of the household, the Capulet clan, and Paris. Paris is a man who is coming to Capulet intending to court Capulet's daughter, Juliet. Well, he's kind of doing things the right way. First, he's starting with the father. He wants to marry Juliet. And Paris, where have you heard that name before? If you've been in Great Books 1, and I told you the background of the Battle of Troy when we read the Odyssey Book 9, you'll recall acting out the preposterous Paris skit that we did, whatever that was about. But Paris comes and he steals or runs away with Helen, depending on which version of the story that you read, essentially taking somebody else's wife, thus launching the start of the Trojan War. So that name is interesting because that's what you should maybe recall when you think of Paris. So just interesting tidbit to hold in the back of your mind. Here comes Paris. He's going to talk to Capulet about potentially marrying Juliet, who is 13, mind you. Duh. And even Capulet in this story thinks that's a big deal. Let's look at the lines. Capulet says this. Let's look at line 7, if you can find it. But saying over what I've said before, my child is yet a stranger in the world. It means she's not quite grown up, right? She hath not seen the change of 14 years. Let 2 more summers wither in their pride before we may think her ripe to be a bride. Okay, good dad points right here. Good job, Capulet. Let's give Juliet about 2 more years to get ready to be a bride. Like, let's wait until she's like almost 16. Good points there, Dad. But Paris tries to convince Capulet, wait a second, younger mothers are made than just Juliet here. Like, there's girls who are younger than this as mothers. And Capulet says, and too soon marred are those so early made, right? Like, there's problems with those who have maybe married so early. Earth has swallowed all my hopes but she. Stop there, park there for a minute. Try to parse that out. Earth has swallowed all my hopes but she. So what gets swallowed up in earth? Maybe somebody who's died and who's buried. So Capulet is saying, she's my only child. She is all I have left. She is the hopeful lady of my earth, but woo her, gentle Paris. Get her heart. So Capulet, okay, again, I'm kind of on Capulet team here right now. He's doing the right thing. Woo my daughter. Get her heart. Get her to love you. that there have been all kinds of arranged marriages without love. Props to Capulet here for saying at least woo her. My will to her consent is but a part. So he wants his daughter to choose to love the man that she's going to marry. That's stellar, right? It's really nice. Good job. And she agrees within her scope of choice lies my consent and fare according to her voice. This night I hold an old accustomed feast. He says, I'm going to have a party tonight. I invited many guests. Why don't you come? And I think he even says something about looking at their beauties, right? I think he does, somewhere in this passage. I don't know exactly which line. He says, come to our party. Look and see, right? And like her most, whose merit most shall be. So there you go. Which on more view of many, mine being one, may stand in number. So let Juliet stand in the number of all these women. Why don't you just come, take your time, slow down. Wise counsel. Thanks for asking for my daughter's hand, but she's a little young. Why don't you come to my party tonight and see if there's any other girls? And you can compare them to Juliet by all means. Okay, so Capulet calls his servant over. Now, the nurse that's coming up, she's a pretty funny character. We're going to like her. Mercutio is a pretty funny character. We're going to like him. This guy, this servant, just plays a small part, but he's comedy in the midst of this tragedy. He's funny. Capulet says to his servant, hey, here's all the people I've invited to my party. Why don't you go pass out the invitations? And the servant's got the invitations, and he's like, I can't read. But he's going to go do it. He's going to try. I don't have any specific notes on that. Okay, so the servant's going to go out, and he's kind of on stage by himself here. And he says, maybe line 40, 38 or somewhere in there. Find them out whose names are written here. He can't read. And he's going to mess something up. He's going to get something jumbled here. He's going to say, it is written. So the story goes that the shoemaker should meddle with his yard. So think yard of fabric. No, he got that mixed up. And the tailor who sews with his last. Now, a last is like a model for making a shoe. So he just kind of inverted those things. He messed up the saying. And then he says, the fisher with his pencil. Fishermen don't use pencils. And the painter with his nets. So the fisherman needs the nets, and the painter needs the pencil. So he's got that mixed up. So already the audience is like, ha ha, this guy's funny, right? What's going to happen? He's going to mess something up. So in comes Benvolio and Romeo, who are not Capulets, who are not invited to the Capulet party. They are Montagues. Boy, that picture's really fuzzy. See, that's why I tried to use AI for that last one, because every time I try to copy a picture, I'm so not techie. You guys know this. So this is a fuzzy picture of Romeo and Benvolio reading off the list. And on the left there is your kind of clumsy, clownish servant who can't read at all. So in come Benvolio and Romeo, and Benvolio is still talking to Romeo, still giving him advice. Hey, listen, why don't you find some other girl? And then right here in line 49, he says, take thou some new infection to thine eye. We don't want an infection, do we? That's gross. But he means like some other love. Remember, love and illness are equated kind of in this medieval time period. And the rank poison of the old will die. Find a new girl. Move on. There's other fish in the sea. Find a new girl. And when you do, the poison of the old, the agony, the pain for Rosalind, it'll go away. It'll die. Okay, so that's the advice that Benvolio gives. And as they're talking, Romeo's just still stuck on Rosalind. In comes this servant. And Romeo sees him. He's like, good afternoon. Hey, how are you? And the servant says, hey, can you read? And Romeo, still pining, my fortune and my misery. He's just still in pain. Blah. And the servant says, maybe you learned that without a book, which is kind of funny, but also telling about Romeo. Like he's playing a part of being in love. Romeo says, I'll read your list. And sure enough, he does. And you can read through the list, all these Italian names of people who were invited to the Capulet party. One of them being Rosaline. Yep, she's on the list. And the servant goes on to say, hey, if you're not of the house of Montague, come, be merry, come to the party. Well, clueless, they are of the house of Montague. And now the Montagues know that the Capulets are having a party. So Benvolio says, hey, at this party sips the fair Rosaline, whom thou so loves, with all the admired beauties of Verona. She's not the only one, which is just what Capulet said to Paris. Look around. There's lots of girls. Go, he says, and compare her face with some that I will show you. I'll show you some other girls, right? And I'll make you think that your swan is a crow. So a little bit of metaphorical language here. Rosaline's not really a swan, literally, and not literally a crow. But when Romeo sees all these other beautiful women, he's going to think that Rosaline's not so pretty. Oh, but Romeo isn't having this. When the devout religion of mine eye maintains such falsehood, then turns tears to fires, and these who often drown could never die, transparent heretics be burnt for life. Oh, my word. Okay. Again, his language is very courtly. It's of the courtly love tradition, and that kind of those sonnets about the scorned lover whose girl will not love him, and she's so far above him. The all-seeing sun never saw her match since the world began. And Beowulf's like, tut tut. In your eyes, in that crystal scales of your eyes, let there be weighed your lady's love against some other maid. You're gonna compare her to others. She's not that beautiful. And Romeo, this is the very end of the scene, and we're gonna wrap it up. I'll go along. No such sight to be shown, but to rejoice in the splendor of mine own. He's going to go to the party just so he can stare at Rosaline. Oh, boy. Romeo. All right, that's it for scene 2. Now, I want you to read it. I want you to read through scene 2, stop, look at the language, try to look at your helps on those pages, and just get a feel for what's going on in scene 2. And then we'll have another video for scene 3 coming right up.